Aloha, what's up everyone? Welcome to another episode. I'm JayDreamerZ, and today we're going to be talking about NASA, the Doomsday Preppers. NASA and the elite Doomsday Preppers. Not your regular old-fashioned, regular people out here in the world just trying to make it Doomsday Preppers. The Doomsday Preppers who have known about the plasma apocalypse and the upcoming cycle for quite some time, for thousands of years, having so long to develop technology to escape this world and to hide out whenever it does come back around. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for all the people who just joined my Patreon. I got some links up here if you'd like to support my work, Patreon and PayPal. I also want to say thank you and give a big shout out to Par, who is my sponsor on Patreon at the moment, and the new patrons and credits will be coming up in a couple of days. I also want to give a special shout out to Julie and Daryl and Rogan, who sent me a gift to my P.O. box with some cool crystals and some homemade medicines and stuff. I want to say thank you very much. And thank you to Mary, my special subscriber out in Florida. All right, without any further ado, let's talk about NASA and the Doomsday Preppers. So, thumbs up in the chat if it sounds good. Oh, Larissa's on top of it. Thanks, Larissa. All right, sweet. So, they want you to think that this is Doomsday Preppers. You guys, just wearing a mask or whatever it may be. Botlil, welcome to my channel. High five. But it's really this, okay? It's really the Doomsday Preppers of the people who have known for thousands of years about these apocalyptic cycles that I share here on my YouTube channel that I call the Plasma Apocalypse. And they're all getting ready to blast off and leave the world behind. Just like the movie, Leave the World Behind, which we also decoded on my Truth in Movies playlist. So let's take a closer look at this. But before we get into NASA and understand you know, space flight and all of the advances made in aeronautics and stuff, we need to take a look at a couple of other things. We're going to look at, this is the logo for NASA, by the way. It's basically a worm. They actually call it the worm logo, which is interesting because I believe that the worms represent plasma filaments that are out there in quote-unquote space, which is beyond the firmament, beyond the dome. But yeah, it's pretty much the exact same thing. They call that the worm logo. Bunch of worms. Interesting. But yeah, before we take a look at NASA, we need to take a look at what eats worms. Specifically, we need to take a look at gigantic birds, right? Birds, bird people. This is actually an interesting statue. This is the first person to ever allegedly create a glider. So the first person to attempt to fly outside of the Icarus stories from ancient Greece and Roman times. We've got Abbas ibn Firnas, who actually created wings and jumped off of a cliff or a tall building or something and glided, for a decent distance. This was about around the 9th century. Right? Over 1,000 years ago, they attempted spaceflight. But now we need to take a look at actual birds, actual wings. But let's go way back before modern birds. We need to go way back to the era of gigantism, where there were birds so large that they were said across the world to pick up elephants, to fly elephants high up into the atmosphere and then drop them so that they would crack like an egg on the ground and they would have the pieces and bring the pieces back to their nest. Griffins were also said to do something similar. But this is how large these birds from antiquity were. This one in particular that we're looking at now goes by many different names. You can see it way back here in the background. You see that bird way back there? Carrying an elephant. This was known as the Rook, or the Rock in modern English. There's also another one up here. As you can see, this one's carrying an elk or something. I've talked about these giant birds and their ability to carry very large animals. And I've been met with some people who don't believe that that's possible. I'm telling you it is possible, and I've shared videos of modern birds carrying around deers and lambs and goats and stuff, flying around with them in the air. So, in antiquity, we had gigantism. all things on this world were gigantic, birds included, right? As a matter of fact, I think that's where a lot of these quote-unquote dinosaur bones come from, like the velociraptors and stuff. They're just gigantic birds, basically. Gigantism existed in our world. But the conditions were much different way back when everything was gigantic. Our world goes through periods and epochs of pressurization. Sometimes it builds up to high pressure, like we have today, and sometimes that pressure is released in an event where the sky cracks open and all of the atmospheric pressure is released. Now that's interesting because that's going to change how things fly in the air and their ability to fly in the air. So what I'm saying, simply put, is that we have more pressure in the atmosphere today than we had so long ago during a time that is now fantasy to us. How would that affect flight and our ability to travel and to explore the world? Well, if the atmospheric pressure was less, right, then it would be more difficult for propulsion. So even birds would find it more difficult to fly unless they developed larger wingspans. If they were bigger and had larger wings, they would have more area to push against, and it would be easier for them to fly under less pressure. Now, this particular bird, this is an actual real model of an ancient bird. This bird is gigantic. This guy's standing right here. He's standing next to this gigantic bird model, and it's called the Argentavis. And you can see there's another dinosaur version right next to it that was even bigger, called the Quetzalcoatlus. But the Argentavis was the accepted, within academics, largest flying bird ever. You could also say they put a gigantic dragonfly right next to this little human here too. This is where during the age of gigantism in flora, which means plants, and fauna, which means animals, but also humans, human giants walking around. And that age is going to return to us. And when that age returns to us, so will the conditions of the atmosphere that the prior age had long ago, which means less pressure in the atmosphere. Now, let's examine these birds. That one was called, what was it called? Argentavis, because it was allegedly made its home in Argentina. So, gigantic birds that could easily swoop down and pick up a human being and gobble up a human being without a problem, especially if it can pick up elephants, was found in Argentina, they say. Well, let's take a look at one of my favorite maps from the Dark Ages, from the Middle Ages. It's the 1587 Urbanto Monti map of the world, which has interesting anomalies all over it. But we're going to take a look at South America right here. And we're going to go down into the Argentina region from southern South America. Let's zoom in a little bit. This is the Argentina area right down in here. Let's see if we can find something. I do see what look like some birds. There's a bird right here. There's some birds up here. There's a bird over here. Let's take a closer look. There's a bird carrying an elephant right here off of just off the coast of, whatever used to be near Argentina. But if we take an even closer look to right behind my head, there's some humans back there too. Now let's take a look at what it says right by those humans. It says Regione de Gigante, which means the region of the giants, the land of the giants. And here you have a gigantic bird. And we know it's gigantic because we can see another one right here carrying an elephant. So there were gigantic birds. The atmosphere was a lot different back then. And birds would have to, by necessity, if there was less pressure in the atmosphere, they would have to either grow larger and adapt, or they would probably just naturally grow larger based on the new conditions of that world. And they would be able to fly great distances, right? Or they would have to adapt otherwise to the land and become land walkers and land lovers, right? Which obviously they would turn into our modern day ostriches and emus and things of that nature. And there would be less pressure towards Antarctica, right? Most of the pressure would build up towards the center. Even less pressure would be existing in the southern areas of our world, which is why I personally believe that we find so many flightless gigantic birds in those particular regions today. Other ones may have, migrated and stuff because it's been like thousands of years since the world was flooded. But that takes us to humans, human beings, and our attempts to navigate, our attempts to explore, right? Because we're really talking about NASA, and NASA comes to us in the guise of explorers, the ultimate explorers. They're going to search the cosmos and boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, it all started way back when? When? After the apocalypse. That's exactly when it started. A long time ago, after an apocalyptic event that I believe the last major shift occurred just before what we now call the Dark Ages. Okay, and about 1,000 years later, when that age of light, when that millennial reign was over with, the quote-unquote season of Satan began, and people became lost for some reason. They didn't know directions. They didn't know where they were or where they came from. So they began, after about another 500 years of settling and getting used to this new world, they began to spread out. But specifically, it was the nobles who began to spread out. The nobles would hire fleets. They would hire pirates. They would hire people that were used to navigating and exploring, and they would send them out under the guise, today, your children will actually be taught that it was to go find cinnamon. I swear to goodness, it was not to go find cinnamon. These people, these relatives of prior apocalyptic survivors became nobles. They became rich and wealthy. Why? Because those apocalyptic survivors that lived within Hyperborea and then that land suffered cataclysm, so they left to the southern extremities, which is our northern hemisphere. Those people were highly intelligent simply and only if for living for hundreds and hundreds of years longer than anyone else because of the conditions that exist in that terrestrial paradise. So all of these people are the sons and sons and sons of ancient apocalyptic survivors. And this is the secret of the Freemasons. This is what they don't want you to know. This is what they're so hush-hush about. And this is what the Age of Exploration was all about. It was finding Hyperborea, which is what my second book is all about. And you can find that available on my website, JayDreamerZ.com. But it was trying to return to Hyperborea. It was trying to return to the Garden of Eden and find it once again. They knew it existed. Hitler himself had a whole esoteric department of people who he dedicated to going through all of this esoteric and arcane knowledge and fringe history and things, looking for artifacts and clues. And he was basically the Nazi equivalent to Indiana Jones, who was looking for the same thing, right? But this led us to the Age of Exploration, which at the time, the best way to get around was by boat. So people would sail around and they would look for the Garden of Eden. Don't believe me? Look up and do any research on any of the explorers that came to the New World, and you will inevitably come across stories where they just happened to ask the locals if they knew anything about a terrestrial paradise. And the locals always said, yeah, we heard it's north. We heard it's way further north than here. And in some cases, those explorers, commissioned by nobility to go get cinnamon and sugar and, you know, all of the fun cereal toppings, salt or whatever, they would pack up everything and go north and go look for cities made of gold and terrestrial paradises and fountains of youth and whatnot. Now, after we had the boats and sailing around on water, next up came aviation, right? Now, remember, if the world, theoretically, if the atmosphere had much less pressure, let's say there was like half the pressure there was today, I'm just throwing out a random number, right? If you had less pressure in the atmosphere, propulsion would be very difficult, as we said in the first place. So propellers and airplanes and the modern age of aviation as we know it would be near impossible, extremely difficult to do, especially before things like combustion engines and stuff. As a matter of fact, combustion itself would be more difficult under less pressure circumstances. So what did we make? We filled up balloons. Humans started to take their ships, their nautical ships, and put balloons on them. And that created airships, actual ships that go up into the sky, which eventually also turned into hot air balloons and baskets and things of that nature. So this is a much easier way to get around under an atmospheric condition with less pressure, right? Now, over time, as all of the Earth is releasing more and more gas and the ocean's releasing gas, that pressure is starting to build up and build up and build up, and it makes the air more dense and it makes it easier to push against, which makes propulsion even easier. So the people would go from flying around in hot air balloons to methods of propulsion. Now, this is an interesting hot air balloon article. This is about a man named Solomon. And Solomon, a Swedish explorer, took the hot air balloon that he had and decided to go to the North Pole, right? We're still in the age of exploration. It's just at this point in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the only places that they haven't crossed off of their list in their search for the Garden of Eden was the North Pole, the Arctic, and the South Pole, the Antarctic. So whenever they finally came up with faster and better ways to navigate the world, first place they go, North Pole, right? So this guy is famous for terribly crashing and failing epically at his attempt to find the Garden of Eden, in my opinion, and go to the North Pole. Let me read this article, little words down here at the bottom. It says the crash of Andres' balloon on July 14th, 1897, recorded in a photograph taken on the spot by a member of the expedition. All right, so anyways, basically he crashed and his co-pilot crashed, his photographer crashed. They died up in the Arctic, right? Years and years later, there was an expedition to try to go find them or whatever, and they found the camera, obviously, because they have the pictures and stuff, but they did not find the people. They were lost in the Arctic. I believe they were looking for Hyperborea, which is beyond the northern winds. Now, that takes us to Kitty Hawk. The Wright brothers, right? Their famous first ever airplane attempts. This, I believe, was now possible because the pressure had built up to such a degree that propulsion, right, was something that was right around the corner, right? Something that was going to make it easier for people to fly in the air. So now we have prop airplanes or propulsion airplanes, propeller airplanes, right? These little propellers, they'll spin around. And remember, the atmosphere is just like a fluid. It's just like being underwater, except for it's not as thick as water, but it is fluid. So we have these propeller airplanes. Now that takes us to another famous expedition to the North Pole. They keep on knocking at the door of the Arctic. Why? Because, like I said, they're the offspring of prior apocalyptic survivors, which became the nobilities and presidents and the elite and the hidden hand of the world that we live in today, having taken it over through intelligence, through trickery and deception. Now, that takes us to this particular airplane, which is called Fokker, which is interesting. At least that's the name of the company that built it, at least. I think it's actually called the Josephine, but it says Fokker right there. This was the airplane piloted to the North Pole by the famous Admiral Byrd, right? A Navy admiral that they just decided to volunteer. Hey, you're going to go to the extremities of our world. You're going to go to Antarctica and participate in all these classified secret government projects and, secret things, and go ahead and take our whole fleet, our whole Navy with you, by the way. So he also went to the North Pole. Now, something interesting about his trip to the North Pole is there is, according to legend, a lost diary that Admiral Byrd wrote about his experiences going to the North Pole. And there's a lot of anomalies with the stories that don't add up. The official story, as usual. With his trip to the North Pole. Now, check this out. When Admiral Byrd goes to the North Pole, according to his secret diary, he goes to a land that is beyond the pole, to what he calls the center of the great unknown. His ship is pulled in, what's seemingly magnetically or electromagnetically, by advanced giant beings that live inside of the earth. As he goes down in there, he meets a technologically advanced race of humanoids, and he's taken to their leader, where the leader says this to Admiral Byrd. The leader says, "Now I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world." Let me repeat that. The inner world, Hollow Earth leader, giant human, says to Admiral Byrd, "There is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answer in your weapons. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled and all human beings are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you think that I'm mistaken?" Admiral Byrd says, "No. It happened once before. The Dark Ages came, right? And they lasted for more than 500 years. Yes, my son," replied the master. "The Dark Ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall. But I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures. And they will be here, and they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. These treasures of the world will be safe in their keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again and help revive your culture and your race." Interesting, right? So we're talking about the age of exploration. We're talking about people, tribes being lost, not knowing which direction is which, not knowing where to go or where they are. And this happening immediately after the Dark Ages, which is what Admiral Byrd's diary corroborates, which my very own theory, right? So the question is, who cares? Who cares about the North Pole? If it's just water, as they put on our maps, or if it's ice, they can't seem to make up their minds if it's ice or if it's water. Or who cares about the Antarctic, about the South Pole? It's supposed to be a desert of ice and nothing there except penguins. Another giant flightless bird, by the way. So, this is interesting. So we've got technology developing that is helping the elite choose people to go search out the world for them. They're slaves, essentially. They're working for the kings and the queens, whose job it is to sit in a cushy, comfy chair, hold a scepter, and give commands as they eat popcorn and treat themselves nicely. So that takes us to NASA. Now this right here is NASA's original logo, believe it or not. And it was created in the early 1900s. I want to say 1913, somewhere around there. 1915, yes. So before it was called NASA, it was called NACA, or NACA, which is interesting because the C in ancient languages is also a G, which means this is also Naga, which is also another reference to serpents or worms or the fiery serpents that are in the air, etc. Dragons, right? So this is what it was when it first came out. It was NACA instead of NASA, and that stands for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Not exactly space, but they're getting their way up a little higher, right? Here we have an old-fashioned sign that still commemorates it. Notice the 101. National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Let's take a look at what this sign says. The National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, was established by Congress in 1915 to supervise and direct the scientific study of the problems of flight. The NACA created the Langley Memorial Aeronautical Laboratory at nearby Langley Field in 1917, overseen by an advisory committee including Orville Wright and Charles Lindbergh. The laboratory created and used specialized wind tunnels, underground wind tunnels, and facilities to research and accelerate aeronautic technologies during peacetime and wartime from the 20s to the late 50s. And in 1958, NACA was superseded by the modern NASA, and the laboratory was renamed the Langley Research Center. NACA. Interesting. So we have NASA, we have space exploration and stuff too, right? So they've already gone east to west during the age of exploration. Shortly after that, during like the Gilded Age, they would start going and venturing north and south. They're starting to cover all of the directions. They still don't seem to be able to find the Garden of Eden or home, right? Now they're going up way high to make sure they haven't missed anything. They're going so high up, as a matter of fact, they're going to the dome itself. The very first man to be put in space, allegedly, was in 1961. Think about how long ago this was, back when they wore tinfoil freaking Faraday cage suits, right? 1961, Alan Shepard was the first person to blast off, allegedly, into the area that we now call space, which I believe is the space that exists between the dome, the firmament, and the surface world, where we are. Where the gases build up so much, it becomes very dense, and it's more buoyant up there in the center between us and the dome. So yeah, everyone's making a big deal about space trip. We went to space, etc. But it's really all about what was going on around this time. Not only were they interested in checking out space, which is really just going as high up as you can to explore the upper limitations to our world. That's what they're doing. So after the apocalypse, people are shook. They lose sense of direction. They don't know where they are in the world. They're trying to find home so they can get back to it before the next cycle, right? So they can get back to and return to Hyperborea. So they went east to west. They went north to south. Now they're going up and down to try to figure out where they are and thus where home is. They also, around this time, started blowing up nuclear bombs high up into the atmosphere, right? Project Dominic, Project High Jump, Looking Glass, Fishbowl, etc., and so on and so forth, where they're clearly testing out the dome. And then, of course, we have the famous moon launches, which no one has gone back to the moon since. Odd? Much? Isn't it odd that there's remote control cars and airplanes and helicopters on Mars with 4K video, but they can't get a clear picture of Comet 3I Atlas, or there's nothing roving around on the moon right now? Every time they send something to the moon, like it allegedly crashes or topples over, or it looks like PlayStation graphics or something. And then, of course, we have the ISS. You'll have to forgive the curved space balls, but the ISS here also, by the way, looks like the Thunderbird, in case you missed that. So they have all of this stuff they're putting way high up in the atmosphere, testing the boundaries. They also have these protective suits. Now, I have given a few different lectures on how I believe that it is possible for things to be buoyant in the space that exists between the dome and the surface world, as I explained earlier. But these protective suits are not for the quote-unquote vacuum of space, right? We live in a closed system. That means there's no getting out, buddy. There's no leaving until the earth opens those boundaries, until a gate in the star above opens up, and there is an actual star gate above us, a gate of the gods that exists at the center of the world, at the apex dome, directly above the North Pole. When that time comes, then they will be able to leave the world behind. They will need protective equipment. They will need rockets and some sort of vehicles to traverse what lies beyond the dome, if that's the direction they choose to go in order to escape this coming apocalyptic cycle. So they go to the moon, or at least they say that they went to the moon. They didn't really go to the moon, though, because the moon, as we all know, is a light. It is a luminary in the heavens. It's obviously not a rock. It's obviously not full of moon dust or anything like this. This was all obviously filmed by Stanley Kubrick, and the rest of you were deceived, and still deceived, thinking that we went to the moon and nobody ever went back. Despite all of the advances in technology from the 60s, which is like forever ago, okay? Like, that might as well be in the 1800s. Like, yay, we went to the moon, we're satisfied, that's fine, we don't need to go back. You know what I mean? They'll keep promising they'll go back, but they won't, ever, okay? Because it'll be way harder to trick people. I don't know. They might trick you again. But anyways, when they talk about going to the moon, we need to think about what the moon is. As I said, it's a luminary, it's a light, but it's clearly holographic. It's clearly a projection. It's showing you something, some sort of surface somewhere. It's projecting something that is of substance. It's projecting something that is real. So there's a source. If this is a projection, if this is a light in the sky, there must be a source. That's the source. That is the code word. This thing is a code word for that source, which is this. This is also a picture from the Dark Ages and the medieval times, where if you look closely in the background, anytime someone's outside, more often than not, you will see this dome, this bowl shape just hanging down out of the sky during the Golden Age, which is why the background is all gold. And within this dome, I call this the apex dome, which is a center portion of the firmament that dips downward towards us. It's also the all-seeing eye. It's also Nibiru. It's also many other things. It's the Stargate. This will open up, and this is where the atmosphere will depressurize. But in ancient times, they drew a picture of the sun, they drew a picture of the moon, and they put all of the stars inside of this object. Why would they do that? Because this object, it was once known, is what casted those projections and made those focal points that we call stars and the sun, the moon, and the planets. And there's different layers to it as well, which is why you can see those lines in it up there. If you don't know what that is, you might think that's some crazy planet with clouds on it or something, right? But it's not. It's a portion of the firmament, and it's drawn alchemically. It's drawn in pictures and depictions of Jesus at his baptism and otherwise. It's drawn all over the place within antiquity. I call it the apex dome. Sometimes it's not dome shaped. When they draw what it looks like when you're standing directly below it, it's a circle. And this is what it looks like. And as you can see, there's the background, which is all golden, right? That is the image. It is this thing right here that is casting its own image into our sky, which is what we call the moon, which is another world. It's the world above us. It's the world directly across from us when we look up. We can't see it though, because it's a part of the firmament, and our world is dark right now. We don't have those same pillars of light and sky pillars and geoplasma columns that shoot up and light up the firmament so that we can all see it as they did during the Age of Light, which is also the timekeeping method for the Freemasons and the Illuminati. So yeah, we have the apex dome, which you see all those little stars? Those are all craters on the moon. Okay, that's how the light passes through, and it redirects the light, and it makes a star in our sky. There's 10,000 observable, approximately, craters on the moon, and there's 10,000 observable, approximately, stars in the sky. Wow, what a coincidence. Here it is again. This is the apex dome as seen from directly below, with a couple of symbolic women just standing in there dancing under the moonlight. And that takes us to the modern day doomsday preppers. Those who are the children of the children of the children of survivors of an apocalyptic event, of the plasma apocalypse in antiquity. And for hundreds and hundreds of years, they have been preparing. They have taken the knowledge of something that the rest of us have forgotten about, which is partially our fault. It's our fault partially for not continuing to pass along these histories, which are now hidden histories from antiquity. We have forgotten them. We have become consumers. We have distracted ourselves from our origins and therefore our ending. But some family members out there have not, and they have been hollowing out mountains. This one in particular is in my backyard, which is one of the reasons why I'm happy to live here. This is a gigantic, huge mountain on bedrock called Cheyenne Mountain. It is in the Colorado Rockies, and it's also where they recently put the base for the newly established Space Force. So you've got the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and now the Space Force. Okay, which sounds funny to me, but whatever. The Space Force find their base inside of the tunnels and caverns of the hollowed out mountain called Cheyenne Mountain. This is not some place where they just it's just extra protected from missiles. Okay, that's what they're telling the rest of you. That we need our military, we need the elite top thinkers to be protected by layers and layers of mountains and underground underneath this gigantic rock. No, it's not. This is a doomsday bunker. Watch any of these movies that have like a doomsday movie. Half of them show people hiding out in NORAD, which is what this is. It's a doomsday bunker, okay? This is not the center for operations for any kind of logistics, military, any of that stuff. That might be secondary. There's other uses for it until the time comes, I'm sure. But this is an elite level doomsday bunker to create a whole brand new city, a whole brand new nation of people procreating under this mountain while they wait out the apocalypse. And this right here is Cheyenne Mountain. Now, I've been to this mountain. I've hiked right next to this mountain hundreds of times. I've never been able to see this tunnel, unfortunately. I tried to go, but they won't let me in. But on this exact same mountain, we will find where the mega elite rich who settled Colorado Springs in the name of Spencer Penrose and others, they have set up this particular shrine. I've done a video about this. This is called the Will Rogers Shrine of the Sun. This building in the background, you see that castle-looking tower right there? And there's actually like a castle wall and everything that goes around it. You see this big old wall of China looking deal? Yeah. This tower right here is a mausoleum. Underneath it, which it goes down into the mountain itself, is the grave of Spencer Penrose. All you need to know about him is he's just one of the mega rich, sons of survivors or whatever. Just inherited a lot of money, invested it, used his intelligence, and became super wealthy, right? As everyone was moving west or whatever. Him, his wife, and 2 of their friends are buried underneath this structure. Strange thing, though, about this structure, none of it is dedicated to their family. For a mausoleum for your own family, for the super mega elite and rich, you would think that their pictures would be all throughout this or something. It's not. Instead, it's Will Rogers, a comedian. A random comedian from the time. They named it after him. Now, why? Will Rogers died under suspicious circumstances in the northernmost part of Alaska when his one-eyed pilot crashed his plane on their way to Siberia, allegedly. Remember, this is a comic in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. The cowboy comic, right? And allegedly he was going to Siberia to help them find, better routes to fly supplies between Russia and the United States. This comic was doing that. I don't think so. I think these people were looking for Hyperborea still, looking for the Garden of Eden still, and sometimes they try to get away and they end up dying. On the same mountain, Cheyenne Mountain, they have a zoo. I've been to this zoo about 14 times. I don't know. It's at 6,714 feet. An entire zoo full of giraffes and aquatic animals and birds of all kinds, right around from a Doomsday bunker. Interesting. Why would they put a zoo on the mountain? Like, to walk in the zoo, you're literally walking like you're climbing a mountain. It's like hiking, okay? Not far from the zoo, we also have the Broadmoor, which is this mega rich hotel complex. These rooms are like $500 a night, right? Presidents stay here. The elite stay here. Only rich and powerful and famous people stay here. And it's right at the base of Cheyenne Mountain, built by the Penrose family. Interesting. What are they doing? I believe they had knowledge. That knowledge was knowledge of these apocalyptic cycles. They wanted to be as close to this place as possible. Now, in the news, other than here in my local neck of the woods, this is happening all around the world. Whatever country you're in, the mega elite are preparing. They're building underground bunkers across the world. I didn't even have to watch the news to know this. I dreamed this. I was shown this in a vivid dream where I don't want to describe the whole dream, but it's like I can see it. You know what I mean? Some dreams disappear. Some dreams you can't forget. I was shown that I was going through between this, like there was mountains on both sides, and I could see like through the mountain, and all these rich people were building all these bunkers deep into the mountains. And then whenever I saw them, and they know I saw them, they started chasing me and stuff. But yeah, this is from CNN. Super rich are building doomsday bunkers. Why would they do that? Right? Well, some of them, as I said before, are getting ready to go to the moon. Or sometimes they'll call it Mars or whatever, right? They can't leave the world. There's a dome. The world is a closed system. Even within academics, they say it's a closed system and you can't get past the Van Allen belts or whatever. But one of these days, the sky itself will open. And when that happens, otherworldly humanoids, which I call fractalverse travelers, they will be able to come down into our world and land. And inner earth giants and humanoids, just like the ones that Admiral Byrd met, they'll be able to rise up to the surface. Gog and Magog will come to the surface once again. Along with strange animals as well. But anyways, the elite of this world are able to leave, to take off, to blast off. Why? Not so much because they like think the apocalypse sucks and they just don't want to deal with it. It's because of what happens during the next cycle after the coming apocalypse. When the atmosphere depressurizes, geoplasmas, gases like fresh oxygen, will erupt from within the earth. Keep in mind, down inside of the hollow earth, there's giant plants all over the place. And it's building up oxygen and oxygen and oxygen, but it's being held in by the earth's own magnetism. When the magnetism disappears during a neutral point of a polarity shift, all those gases will rush up to the surface. Those gases will ionize. They'll become plasma. They'll become energy. They'll fill our surface world once more with energy, so much so telepathy will return. People will be able to know what's on the minds of others. People will find it very difficult to hide their thoughts from other people, right? The truth will just be everywhere and exposed and known by all. The people that run the world today, doesn't seem to me that they want to live in a world under those conditions. They would rather travel around the fractalverse, travel around space or whatever, and go land in a fresh world that just suffered an apocalypse where there is no telepathy, and they'll be able to take control of that world once again and live cush lives. Pardon me. World's largest bunker community. There's entire communities of people. Right? And you have to have some money to do this, right? You can build it, and I've got a lot of tips and stuff. And if you guys ever want a one-on-one consultation with me, go to my website, JayDreamerZ.com, and there's some instructions there for how you can sign up for a consultation. I'll be happy to share with you all of my best tips for improving your chances to survive the apocalypse. No guarantee though, but I can tell you, ways that I prep at the very least. And I can also take a look at your local geography, tell you the pros and the cons and stuff and what to expect in your area where you live. Speaking of building underground bases and trying to get back to Hyperborea, the land at the North Pole, which is also, damn, I just got a brain fart. Atlantis, and it is also the Garden of Eden, right? Project Iceworm. We've talked about this a couple of times, right? NASA recently, like in the past couple decades, discovered something called Camp Century, which is the camp area where the military, in the United States military, set up a secret base of underground tunnels in Greenland, under the ice, allegedly, right? And then the whole thing was, they lied to the world about what they were doing. What they were really doing, allegedly, was they were going to store ICBMs. They were going to store nuclear warheads and stuff up in the ice of northern Greenland for no reason, right? To keep them nice and cold, I guess. And then they just abandoned it. They dug all this stuff. They made all this room. And then they're telling us, oh, joke's on us. Okay, we were going to put our nukes up there, but we changed our mind. And now it's just an abandoned base full of miles and miles and miles of underground tunnels, suspiciously close to that circular island landmass that's located at the North Pole on map after map after map from the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, right? Here's Camp Century, here's all their underground facilities and stuff. They're trying to get as close as they can to Hyperborea. Okay, so the mega elite of this world, the people that are in the know, and that's not everybody. Okay, that doesn't mean all the rock stars know. That doesn't mean everybody understands the apocalyptic cycles. Okay, they might have a level of knowledge, but not all of them know, and not all of them are going. And some of them think that they're going to go and think that they're going to escape or whatever, but they're not going to. Even many of the rich people. So some of them are going to blast off and leave the world behind. A very few number of them, because there's only so many rockets and stuff, right? Some of them are going to huddle down inside of the earth and bunker down. And right now they're edging their way towards the Arctic. All the countries, all of your governments are starting to fight over resources and land and airways and stuff over the Arctic. The Arctic is developing a strong interest from all these different countries. Now, speaking of underground tunnels and my neck of the woods, Denver, the DIA, the Denver International Airport, also has underground tunnels, okay? I've been there a million times. I can sense them. I can feel them. Last time I went through Denver, or the time before that, they had all these weird billboards up because they were doing this creepy construction, right? Remember they used to have that big creepy mural, like painting that people could look at and check out and make videos on? Well, they took that down. They replaced it with just plain old white walls. It has more of a hospital vibe to it now. And then they put up all these signs that says they're all conspiracy-oriented signs. And it's supposed to be like making fun of the conspiracy theorists, like, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, we heard about the conspiracies about Denver International Airport. Under construction or underground tunnels? Learn the truth at their website. Yes, Denver, they changed the name instead of DIA to DEN. Yes, Denver's got some secrets. And there's an alien connection or whatever, right? And these are the walls. See how white those are? Like a hospital or something? It's terrible, right? They made it even worse. But what it is they're trying to make it look like, you know, all the conspiracy people are wackos. All the regular people, all the sleepwalkers, all the zombies in the world are going to go, ha, 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 that's funny. They're making fun of all the dumb people that think there's underground tunnels and reptilians and aliens and stuff down there. There are. And they're not making fun of us. They're disclosing it and admitting it. They're doing it in the guise of cartoonification, but they're still doing it, right? It says, what are we doing? Adding amazing new restaurants and bars? Or building an Illuminati headquarters? Or remodeling the lizard people's lair? They also have this one, under construction or cover-up? All-seeing eye, the apex dome. Trump wants to buy Greenland, right? The mega elite, the super rich of the world. They're trying to buy up land and property and edge their way as close to Hyperborea as they possibly can. Why? Well, it's a biblical prophecy that the governments of the world, I'm just going to say it in my own way, the governments of the world would surround Hyperborea. They would surround the Garden of Eden, which is called the Camp of the Saints, the place where the saints live, right? And they would surround it in a circle. They would encircle it. Why? Because that island is a circle and it's split by 4 rivers. So all these nations of the world, full of all these losers who have taken over the world and screwed you and me over for so long, that they're going to think that as soon as Atlantis reemerges from the ocean and the beast rises up from the northern sea, which it will in the form of 7 gigantic mountains, they're going to see that and they're going to rush there and try to get there as fast as possible, but there's going to be problems. They won't be able to go into the Garden of Eden and they'll have to figure it out. While they're up there with their armies of the world surrounded, the sun is going to become exceedingly hot. Fire will come down from the heavens and destroy all of them. After which, you may feel free to walk on up. But these are the bloodlines. These are the original tribes that I talk about all of the time, and I talk about in my second book, that left the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden has 4 main continents, 4 main land masses to that circular large Atlantis, right? And each one has 3 tribes within it, and a 13th right there in the middle, which is the priestly class, which is the Merovingian, there's like a million different names to call them. But they're the ones that guard and watch over Mount Meru, basically. They're the Levites. And this is shown to you in the movies. For example, the movie Don't Look Up, which I decoded in great detail. I think my decode was longer than the movie is. But in this movie, the same thing happens. The mega elite rich people of the world know that the world is coming to an end. They get on the news, they get on television, they tell everyone not to worry about it. This is ridiculous. Yeah, we've heard that rumor too, the world's coming to an end. Don't believe it. Meanwhile, chink, 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 they're building spaceships and they're digging underground tunnels and stuff and bunkers to try to hunker down and survive or escape the world. Well, in the movie, that's what they do. All of their spaceships, Elon, NASA, presidents, queens, kings, they're all blasting off at the same time to leave the world from the opening, which is directly above this land. This is that Arctic land. This is the Garden of Eden, as I talk about. And right above it is the apex dome, which is that portion of the firmament that hangs down that I mentioned earlier, right? One is above the other, right? So you got Garden of Eden below, apex dome right above. The apex dome is where all the gases rush to when our atmosphere depressurizes and it blows a hole in the ice of the firmament. And it creates a gate of the gods. It creates a stargate. And that's where they're going to take off. That's why this is called the Gate of the Gods. This is ancient Babylon. This is ancient Egypt. I mean, there's different sections to it and everything. This is Jerusalem. This is the actual city of peace. Okay, why? Because there's peaceful energy here. Modern day Jerusalem is not Jerusalem. It's just renamed in honor of this place. That's why there's no peace in Jerusalem today. It's not Jerusalem. It's the city of peace, right? So it can't be. Anyways, they're all going to blast off. They're going to go up to the apex dome, which, by the way, is made of ice that's reflective. And when you have these geoplasmas also erupting as nice flashlights that are illuminating the firmament, it will also reflect the land that is below it, right here, on it. So you'll be able to look up and see down. You'll be able to look up to see the land below, which means you can make a nice little map. You can start drawing out strange parts of the world you've never even been to. You can definitely see the Garden of Eden, right, as a circle in the sky with an X in it. The planet of the crossing, Nibiru, Planet X, etc. So this is shown to us in many different movies and pop culture where the elite of the world, we all know, are getting ready to say goodbye. They're getting ready to prepare. Some of them are going to try to stay here. Okay, many of them are going to try to stay here. And they got bunkers, they got underground cities, they got deep underground military bases and stuff. And I believe that some of them are so low that they're trying to actually communicate with beings in the hollow earth. So you can go down under the surface, but that's not the hollow earth. Okay, the hollow earth is a separate place from where we are, and it's electromagnetically separated. So the only time that the people who live in the hollow earth and the animals and the plants and all those lovely gases, the only time they can leave and be released up to the surface is during the neutral point of a polarity shift, where that magnetic field that keeps those diamagnetic gases away disappears and lets them all rush up and turn into plasma. So some of the rich fatties are going to go up into space. They're going to travel the fractalverse with their advanced technology and robots and all that stuff to help them out. And we'll probably receive ones from other worlds, other humanoids that will land here during our apocalyptic cycle. Mother Shipton and her prophecy alludes to this. So when you first come to my channel, you hear this poem, "Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye." That's Mother Shipton's prophecy. Listen to that, and towards the end, it actually talks about spaceships coming down and landing once more. So here's NASA. NASA, you can see it's got the firmament in the background, which is dark lit. So this is the sky. This is not just forever space. That's just the firmament. Then there's a hole in the firmament. There's this little circle right here, and there's a plasma tongue that's coming through the hole. This is the depressurization and the cosmic plasmas coming into our world to ground themselves as the thunderbolts of the gods and cosmic lightning and whatever else is going to be terraforming and reshaping our world and petrifying people and stuff. Nibiru or Planet X? This is a CNN screenshot that says NASA on YouTube says the world isn't ending. NASA agency, which is a branch of the government, okay? That's like enough said, right? I don't understand how people can pick and choose. Like, yeah, I don't want to pay taxes. Yeah, I don't like the government. Yeah, me neither. I don't trust them. But they rock the NASA t-shirt. I don't get it. This agency assures that Doomsday will not occur on the winter solstice, December 21st. Right there. The solstice is when the world will end. It shifts between winter solstice, I think, so far, and summer solstice, okay? But that's why we have those holy days. That's why we have those holidays. That's why we gather together with all of our closest friends and loved ones, and we hunker down, and we light logs and fires that can't and won't go out for at least a week, because all the lights we know are going to go out. It's a solemn time. It's not a time for consumerism and buying things and packages and ribbons and crap and fireworks. That's for afterwards, if the apocalypse doesn't come. But all the way before that, these were supposed to be holy days, set apart times that people observed because they knew around the time of year that it's likely to happen. They didn't know which year. They didn't know when the apocalypse would come, but they knew that something happens with the sun when it gets all the way to its extremity to the north, which is the solstice, and all the way to extremity to the south, which is the solstice. Yes, I've heard. I'm sure 14 people have probably said this in my chat. Today's video is brought to you by the number 14, by the way. I don't know why I keep saying that number. NASA in Hebrew means to deceive. I've heard that. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you for lighting the internet on fire with this lovely information. Who is that? Eric says, hey Jay, you're amazing. Hello chat. Kimberly, you're amazing. Thank you, Eric. Check this out. Let me help you guys out. Yes, NASA does mean to deceive. Technically, it's not even pronounced NASA. But let's take a look. So this is the Strong's Concordance. It's the Greek word number 5958. And it says to be deceived, to deceive, deceive, greatly deceived, beguiled, etc. Right? To utterly forget. That's a pretty good one. Now, this is appropriate for NASA because are they deceiving you? Yes. You are being deceived. You are being told to look at the magic eye in the sky, which is responsible for casting the stars into the sky, and to look through it and to see some greater universe that you can fly through, just like the magic eye books that you stare into until you see something finally, right? So yeah, you're being deceived. NASA also has many other implications as a word, okay? It also means to lift, to rise up in a great variety of applications, means things like accept, advance, arise, to bring forth, to burn, to carry, to cast, to contain, desire, ease, exact, exalt, right? So when you lift something up, it's like it can also be haughty. It can be seen as like prideful, basically, right? So it all depends on how you're filtering this, you know what I mean, through your perception. Lofty, it can mean marriage. It can mean to obtain, to pardon, to raise up, to receive, to regard, to respect, to spare, to stir up, etc., and so on and so forth, right? In the ancient world, one word had many meanings, just like one picture has many meanings. Nasha, right, is another way of pronouncing this particular word, and that one does mean to beguile and to deceive. Now, this is also shown to you in the movie Greenland. On many movies, I'm sure you guys could think of a million movies where it's showing you the mega rich, the elite, who have already prepared. I just watched the movie 2012 last night and the night before. It's all about this, okay? The movie Greenland, the movie 2012, all of the rich, they're disclosing it to you. It's not entertainment. It's amusement. There's a huge difference. Muse means to think. Amuse means without thought. So are you amused, right? Or amusing? Are you musing while you're watching the movies? In the movie Greenland, they go to Greenland where they have these bunkers and stuff where the mega rich are hunkering down and trying to survive an apocalyptic event. Meanwhile, as our atmosphere depressurizes, the Stooges will take off on their rockets and they will go to the moon. They'll leave for Mars or whatever code words they want to use. Some of them are going to try to leave the Earth during the only time when the door opens that you can escape the Earth. Sassafras Griffin just gave 10 channel memberships to random people in the chat. High five to you, Sassafras. Now, these are some pictures from what is this one? Don't Look Up. Now, this is actually the elite. These are all super rich people in the movie. They all leave the world behind. They land on some new world. And when they land, they see, lo and behold, giant birds running around, alien birds in some other world, all over the place, right? And the president of the United States, played by this chick right here, she thinks they're really pretty. She wants to go pet the Phantazoid. She wants to go pet this otherworldly animal. And it bites her freaking head off. Gigantic birds having the last laugh. Now, that's how we began the presentation, with gigantic birds. I thought it fitting to end the presentation with gigantic birds. If you go to NASA's Instagram, they strangely enough have this photo of what looks like a big old huge bird that strangely resembles these birds in the movie. And it's staring right at the camera. NASA has a caption up here that says, "What are you looking at?" And it's a sandhill crane or whatever. Like, why are they taking the pictures of the birds? Is that interesting to you? Leave a comment. Let me know. Go check out my website if you want a little more of this action. Join my Patreon, where you can actually talk to me and other people in the Good Vibe Tribe in my chats on Patreon, which are 24/7 live all the time. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
Something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier on me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Find so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake I'll try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up, baby. Time to wake up, time to wake up.
You watching? Come on up and give me a hug.
That was amazing.
Thank you.